Hey, Ag Teacher Thoughts here, coming at you with another video. Well, I figured we'd do a little conversation as I was working on the heater, and it's a conversation I've wanted to have for a while. It's one that I wanted to actually have with another YouTuber. Uh, it's the Dying Breed, which is a horseshoe or a horsehoof trimmer. He's a farrier, puts horseshoes on horses. I talked with him last year when I was still teaching at the high school, and we had quite a lengthy discussion about trades and career work and kind of the things behind that. And it's a conversation I've really wanted to have, and I know a lot of you think this is a plant channel, but this is actually a career and tech channel. It's just my expertise is machining, which I don't have machines to show you, and nursery work. So well, let me give you a little bit of pedigree if this is the first time joining my channel. So I grew up in the nursery industry. I have over 40 years of experience in greenhouse and nursery work, which is why I kind of put a small hobby greenhouse at my home. I'm not currently working anywhere where I have access to a greenhouse. I was a commercial greenhouse grower for many, many years. And then, about 9 years ago, I quit the machining job that I was doing and went into education. So I was training students on career and tech, with my expertise being, of course, manufacturing or machining and greenhouse and nursery work. So now I'm back to manufacturing. So I'm a CNC operator. I specialize in sheet metal. So I make boxes and flanges and brackets and housings and things like that professionally now. So there you go. You're getting the perspective of a trade person. So someone steeped in trade work, in shop experience. If you count my time training students and then my time working in a shop, I'm over 18 years in a shop. But also concurrently with a portion of that, I was a nurseryman. Nursery work isn't a full-time job. When you're a small nursery, it's something you do when you get home from work because you need to supplement that income somehow. And it was a family farm. So I worked on the family farm as it was needed in the last few years of the nursery running. So long story short, you're getting a tradesman's opinion on things. And when we're talking, I'm gonna start working because I've got stuff I need to get done before the sun goes down. And it's kind of all tied into this is the reason I wanted to bring it up and talk on it. So when I was talking to, I believe his name is Caleb, with the Dying Breed YouTube channel, I was there to collect horseshoes that he had that were extra. And those horseshoes were going to be used by my students in the blacksmithing that we were doing. So I purchased a forge for the students through a grant. So I got grant money to do that. And the reason I chose a forge for all of that is it's like the gateway drug for fabricating and metalwork. It's been rather popular lately. Sorry, I've got a small spot and I'm trying to verify I've got this right. But it is a good entry hobby to get people into manufacturing and fabrication, right? So students enjoy it. If you enjoy it, you might try it out. You might find out that you actually like metal and like working with metal. So I was there to pick up horseshoes, and we started up a conversation about trade work and the future. And the thing that his whole channel is based on is it's called the Dying Breed because there are not enough young people going into farrier work as there needs to be. So we're losing more farriers, horseshoers, than we are gaining them. And most of the guys that do it are older. And his channel kind of started to help regrow a passion in young people for farrier work, to basically recruit people for being a farrier. And that's kind of similar I'll get the noisy part done first. So both he and I had the same mindset, which is basically we need to recruit young people into career in tech because there's just not enough. There are not enough people going into that. There's not enough young people that see that as a valid career to replace the number that we're losing. So my motivation for leaving industry and becoming a teacher was to try to recruit students into CNC manufacturing. Part of his goal in starting his YouTube channel, which is actually quite successful, was to recruit more people into becoming farriers. So both of us had the same opinion that we needed more young people heading into those trades. And we're working and talking. It's kind of hard. So anyway, we struck up this conversation about young people and kind of our experience with it. So he's tried an awful lot to recruit young people into becoming farriers. And I thought I had one recruited, but she changed her mind. You know who you are if you're watching my channel. But as a part of the conversation, we kind of were struck both by the idea, it was kind of my idea, I kind of brought it forward, that the reason we're having trouble getting young people to go into the trades is that it's not necessarily a problem with the type of work. It's a problem with how students grow up. A lot of your skill sets and a lot of what you learn how to do depends on how you were raised. And the best way to describe that is really that the change in society happened, and I hate to point it out this way, but honestly, it's a change that happened in the type of play that young people are doing. So when I say young people, I mean elementary school, middle school students. Their type of play and how they play and entertain themselves really affects what they do later on for a career. So if someone is sitting playing video games, you are following a series of steps created by the programmer. You're following a set pattern. When I worked with, and it's a pattern. You just have to figure out the pattern. You don't have to do any creative thinking. Generally, there's not problem solving. It's you try a pattern. If that pattern doesn't work, you try another pattern. It's not a creative problem solving. It's more of eliminating the patterns. It's recognizing a pattern you've seen in the past and applying it to the current game. That's how video games work, right? So we get students that are really good at following instructions. So if you give them instructions, they're great, right? They will complete stuff that you put in front of them as far as if there's instructions. And that is different to how I grew up. So I grew up in the beginning of the video game era, but my parents were still of the idea that television would wreck your eyes and little kids need to go outside and play. So I grew up in an era where sticks and rocks were how we played, like literal sticks and rocks. So my toys outside were sticks and rocks because good toys didn't stay inside. Outside. I didn't take my G.I. Joes outside and play with them in a dirt hill. G.I. Joes stayed in the house. That was inside stuff. And outside, I had Tonka trucks and Tonka track hose and a pile of dirt and sand, and I played outside. Or I went out in our little forest behind our house and I played games with sticks and rocks and baling twine. So a lot of my childhood, my play was based on creativity and problem solving. So seeing a problem, coming up with a solution with the available materials and solving that problem with that. So we've got two different cultural generations. We've got one that follows a set pattern laid out by a video game creator, right? They're great at following those instructions. And then we have another generation that created their own play, that decided what they wanted to do. So they played with sticks and rocks. My generation is the last generation to play with sticks and rocks. That's Gen X. Yep. Call me Gen X. Please don't call me Boomer. That's an insult. That's an insult to Gen X. You want to fire us up? Call us Boomer. That's our parents. Actually, technically, our parents were busters. Get your generations right. But Gen X is the last generation that is based on creativity for their play and problem solving. And that's a real problem. That is an exceedingly difficult problem. So as a teacher, I saw this as an issue where we'd have free time in the shop and we would get done with a unit. So the students had gained some skills and I'd say, all right, you guys have free time in the shop. What do you want to build? And students would come up to me and they're like, well, Mr. Ross, I don't know what I want to build. I'm like, well, build whatever you want. Well, what do you want me to build? I'm like, to build whatever you want, come up with something. And that creativity or that ability to create something out of nothing, to exercise the creative part of the brain, they didn't have it. They couldn't do that. They wanted to follow instructions. They wanted to follow the pattern and they wanted to win by completing the pattern. They lacked the ability to be creative. And it was very difficult as a Gen X educator to have a group of students that didn't have creativity. So yeah, that's one of the things that I was up against as a teacher, is having students that lacked a creative ability to be able to problem solve. It doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but really, I've seen where it goes. So as a teacher, I recognize that, when I got into industry, I had the same thing. So there's been a movement in industry to look at the next generation of leaders. And so all sorts of leaders through all sorts of industries were trying to figure out how they were going to recruit the next generation of workers. And they went through and they started hiring Gen Z and millennials. Actually, it was probably millennials first, but they started hiring millennials for not only for their jobs, but for their leadership positions. So if you looked at the way progress has always happened with industries, is we had a pattern where when one generation passes, the next generation assumes leadership. And that's the way it's been forever, right? The next generation is always your generation of leaders. Well, when we got into the 2000s, there was a cultural shift amongst management, and they were panicking because so many busters were retiring that they panicked that they weren't going to have enough employees and weren't going to have enough leaders. So they actually went through and they skipped over Gen X for leadership and started catering towards millennials. Now, when it comes to regular business, that might be all right. But when it comes to trade work is really kind of based on earning your stripes, right? If you ever want to upset a trade worker, be young, naive, and new to the field and try to throw your weight around. They don't like it. And so what happened is management started putting millennials in charge of Gen X and skipped over Gen X for leadership. So the way that kind of works in like a factory setting, I experienced this at the last factory I worked at. I haven't experienced it at my current one, but the last factory, we'd have millennials that would be put in leadership positions. And as a tradesperson, when something goes wrong with a piece of machinery, you expect there to be someone with greater knowledge than you to help solve that problem. Well, here you had all of these Gen X folks, so they were 40, 50 years old, and you had a very early 20-something person that was in charge of them. So when something went wrong, they'd be called over to the machine and be asked to solve the problem. Immediately, they would pick up their phone and start searching the internet for the answer. Most of us would look at them and say, if the answer was on the internet, we would have already found it. Basically, the problem that we had is a lack of knowledge and experience in management, and also a lack of creativity. So they didn't have the ability to find an abstract solution to a concrete problem. That's something that experience and time and creativity solves. So really, it fostered a lot of distrust in management, and disconnected an entire generation of workers who felt that it had been their time to enter into management as their parents had entered into management. It was our time. We'd earned our stripes. We put our time in, and we were skipped over. And that is a very, very dangerous thing for a company to do, is to not recognize a generation and try to meet a trend. So I don't know. It sounds like I've got a chip on my shoulder, but what I'm really trying to use this as is kind of a cautionary tale. So long story short, we're not going to shorten the story. But anyway, when it comes to workers, I think we need to stick with the way we've always done it, which is, one, let the next generation take over. They've earned their stripes. They put in their time. They have the experience. Let them be the leaders. But two, the problem is that our next generation of leaders, so the generation after me, the millennials, is they don't possess the same mental tools that we have. So if you are out there and you're a parent of a young person that's looking at trades, what I would suggest is maybe not get them the phone, maybe not get them the tablet or the computer, and maybe put them outside. Make them play with abstract things to build that creativity. If you don't believe me that this is an actual thing, where's Toys R Us? Where did Toys R Us go? Why is Toys R Us gone? Toys R Us is where my generation got our creativity. Our toys didn't talk. Our toys didn't move. We put the voices in our toys. We made our toys move. We played with action figures. We played with cars. Current generations don't do that. They don't have that creative ability. So as a country, we need to bring that back. We need to bring back abstract play and creativity. You need to give your kids sticks and rocks and baling twine. Make them build their own toys. Right? Make them be farm kids. Make them be rural farm kids. Don't give them the phone. Make them play. Make them be creative. And they're going to be better for it. They're going to be better leaders. They're going to be better workers. And it's something that, surprisingly, even though my kids grew up in the city, they have gained those skills because we gave them creative toys. My oldest son is loving mechanics. We bought him the Lego robotics kits when he was younger. So he learned to build things. He's always loved things that are mechanical. And he's currently working on his car, his classic car, which he's starting a channel. So that's coming. My youngest son is in CNC manufacturing courses. So he's learning to be a machinist like his dad. So they are working on it. My other child, I don't know what to say on that.